I'm Jennifer Gilmour, and I'm an author and advocate for women in abusive relationships. I want to get to the answers to the questions that many have from those that work in the domestic abuse sector, getting an inside feel of what it's really like in their job role and sharing it with all of you.
Right, hi everyone, welcome to the next hashtag Abuse Talk interview, and I am here with the lovely Emma Jenkins, and we've known each other for actually a short period of time. Right at the beginning of lockdown, we managed to connect through a small business networking Facebook group that I am adminning. And do you know what, her work really resonated with me, and we sort of crossed lines, and we've had conversations, and I felt that it was an appropriate thing to do to bring her on the podcast and talk about mediation. So welcome, Emma.
Thank you. It's lovely to be on this with you.
Yeah, something completely different to what we've sort of been doing and working with together with. But tell us just a bit about your business, actually. I should have said that you're from Mosaic Mediation.
Yes. Yeah, so my name's Emma, and I run Mosaic Mediation. I set it up in 2016. Before that, I worked at the Employment Tribunal, and before that, I did a law degree. So all of those things kind of led to me wanting to find a better kind of way of dealing with legal situations, dealing with relationship breakdown, but that didn't cost a lot of money, didn't take a lot of time, didn't add to the stress of an already stressful situation. And so I found mediation through my degree, and then really got interested in it when I was working at the Employment Tribunal, seeing so many cases come forward where I just thought there's got to be a better way to resolve this. So many times I'd see what the claimant had put in and then the defendant had put in. I think, gosh, if they'd only had a conversation that was maybe supported by someone else who was neutral, they probably would have resolved this and not had to deal with the stress and the cost and the time that goes into a tribunal hearing. And so then I trained as a mediator and I set up my business. So now I do Mosaic Mediation mainly looks at workplace conflict and small business conflict. But I also, in doing mediations, I really wanted to find a way to help people not even get into those situations if possible. So I also do conflict resolution coaching, and I do DISC personality assessments, and I do training as well. So all of those things kind of fall under the umbrella of trying to support people so that they don't end up in those situations.
Yeah, I suppose it's quite a bit of a journey. And I think you talked to me about a dissertation that you wrote.
Yeah, so I got into family mediation. I did family law as my options during my law degree and employment law. But it was in family law that I first really kind of got my teeth into what mediation was about. And I really got inspired by a different approach rather than fighting on behalf of one person, but trying to advocate for both people being heard. So I ended up doing my third year dissertation on family mediation and how important I thought it was as something that as a society we support and encourage and kind of try and develop and grow.
And I suppose obviously we're talking about domestic abuse, and I know that a lot of people are going to be thinking, how can you actually mediate with somebody that is an abusive person? And we've got some questions that have been asked. But for me, it's, you can see the positive side of mediation, and it's something that obviously I may have overlooked as well because of, well, I don't think I would have been able to mediate with that person, but in the right setting, clearly it makes a difference. And I'm assuming you got that outcome from doing your dissertation, that actually in mutual sort of partition of relationship, it might actually help them come to that agreement, sort of conclusion.
I think I did my dissertation, and there were lots of statistics kind of showing how much more positive relationships, especially when it came to co-parenting after a separation or divorce, because the mediation, you get to the bones of all of the tricky bits, the practical elements, the finances, the handling of children's time and all of that kind of thing. You kind of do it in a safer space rather than being in one person's house or the other person's house or around children or during the busyness of life. You've set time aside. So that's quite good. Since then, I've obviously met a lot of people along the way, and when I mentioned that I'm a mediator, there are people who do come back with their experience of family mediation. Some people had a great experience, other people found it quite difficult. Some people were dealing with a partner who, an ex-partner who made the situation more difficult for them. So it's one of those situations where I think mediation is a great kind of way to try and prevent unnecessary conflict happening in the future, especially when it came to children, especially when it comes to finances. But it's not a one size fits all, especially when you're dealing with situations where there is genuine fear for your safety, for your mental well-being. It's a very it's not a one size fits all. It has to kind of look at the situation. Any good mediator will look at a situation and say whether it's appropriate or not.
Right, well, let's get on to the questions then, because I'm interested to hear your thoughts. And obviously this is really just your opinion and, you know, what you think. And I think that needs to be thought about for everyone. I think we have all to have different job roles, and not necessarily we'll all think the same way, or our experiences get in the way of that as well, don't they? So somebody's asked, and we've just sort of skimmed over it a bit there, but can mediation work alongside an abusive person then? I know we've said, you know, the whole, it doesn't fit everybody, you know, it's not a one size fits all, but could it potentially work? You know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there is definitely potential for it to work in some situations. One of the good things about mediation is, although you have the two people there and you have a mediator who's acting as a neutral person in between, those two parties can bring along representation, support, so it doesn't have to feel like it's you against this one person and you're stuck in a room with them. Also, there are ways of doing mediation so you don't have to come face to face. So there's online mediation, there's telephone mediation. There's lots of different ways of doing it, especially in this current situation that we're in at the moment. Everything's gone online, and a lot of things already were. A lot of family mediation and workplace mediation was already happening online. So there is a way to kind of do it so you don't feel in danger, being in the same physical space, but also having someone who's there to support you, to advocate for you and to represent you. I know that for some people, there is a feeling of empowerment of being in a situation where they're really addressing issues which need to be resolved, but they've got someone fighting their corner, but yet it's not in a court. They are making the decision, so they can say no to anything that's put in front of them. And there's a kind of, there's a bit of power in that, of going, actually, I'm going to say no to this, not out of spite necessarily, but kind of going, no, I don't think this is fair, so I'm not going to go for it. And also, as a mediator, one of the key principles of mediation is that you can have confidential conversations with a mediator, and they can really help you kind of work on how to talk about a situation. And a mediator is there to make sure that the situation is fair between those two parties. If I were to leave a mediation feeling like one person felt like they'd given a lot away just to kind of get the day over, I would not feel very satisfied with my role in that day. It's very important that a mediator is able to make sure that there's no kind of power play going on.
Okay, well, Are mediators then abuse and trauma informed?
So before a mediation, you normally have a conversation with each person who's going to be at the day, and that's a really good opportunity for them in confidence to explain their story, so that you are more prepared for the session when you have a mediation. So with family mediation, not being a family mediator, I'm not sure whether they are told by an outside agency beforehand or not, but I would suggest that it is important for them to know that kind of detail before the mediation, so that they can be making sure that there isn't a power play going on, that if it looks like certain behaviours are geared towards making the other person feel unsafe or feel impacted emotionally or psychologically, then they will be able to look out for those cues a lot better if they're aware of needing to. Most mediators will be kind of keeping an eye on body language and all of that kind of thing anyway. But if it's an unusual situation, it's not just a clean cut, people have decided to part ways. If there is abuse involved, if there is emotional trauma involved, or anything like that, then a mediator probably should be made aware of. Also, I believe there's an initial meeting that you can go to. I think it's MIAM, so it's like an information and assessment meeting for family mediation. I believe there are certain exclusions from being compelled to go to that kind of meeting if there has been domestic abuse. So it's worth kind of checking out those exclusions as well, to see whether, if you really don't feel like it's going to be a good situation for you to be in mediation, to go through those exclusions and see whether you fall into that. Or I'm sure, and you may know a bit more than I do on this, but there will be other agencies who can support you through a separation with a spouse or partner when you've been through domestic violence or domestic abuse in any other way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it changed a bit. I don't want to try and work out when, but originally when I went into the family court system, I didn't have to do any kind of mediation. It wasn't.
No.
It was like an optional extra, but you'd sort of tick the box kind of thing, but you could just go straight to court. And then when I went back again, it was actually, no, it's the other way around. You do mediation first. It's not like you have a choice in it, but I was able to give a perfectly good excuse as to why I wasn't going to enter into mediation, and for obvious reasons, really. But you can just not turn up, and then technically you've not played that part in the mediation. So even though it maybe doesn't look good on my part, I've got a perfectly good reason to explain why I couldn't fulfill that mediation role. And I think it is a good opportunity. So, most people might actually end up in family court first, but if they'd have had the opportunity of the mediation, then they could have avoided that altogether. So for those relationships that don't have those abuse tendencies, or it's been a normal separation and you just assume, we're going to have to go to court to sort this out, because let's face it, we're not really educated on that until it happens, unless we choose it as a career path. So then that option's a bit better, isn't it? Because it's a lot more affordable as well. Anyway, we've got another question. How can we be confident that mediators understand and can recognise the often very subtle manipulation of perpetrators? And I suppose that's even, recognising the signs and symptoms. I know you mentioned a bit about body language.
Yeah, so for mediators, there is an element of being able to make sure that you can help people negotiate, that you can help people communicate, but a key part of mediation, as I mentioned, is to make sure that there is no power imbalance going on. And part of that is understanding the relationship before the mediation. So with me doing workplace mediation, I will be aware of the potential for power imbalance if there is a manager and their staff member involved in the mediation. So I will be making sure, being aware of that, so that there is a mutual respect going on, regardless of roles, in a way. And if I notice that it looks like the manager is starting to play like the manager hand of having the control over what happens with the employee's job and roles and responsibilities or any of that kind of thing going on, then I'll probably take a moment to talk to the manager about that, because mediation only works if both parties feel like the situation is fair. If they don't feel like it's fair, then the mediation is not going to work. And so it's most mediators will be very good at noticing body language, noticing tone of voice, noticing certain phrasing that's going on, which may be attempting to kind of persuade the other person, maybe with a certain threatening tone or any of that kind of thing going on. Any good mediator will notice that. But as I mentioned, having an awareness beforehand of there being an imbalance in the roles would be very helpful for a mediator to kind of know beforehand, so that they can be aware of it. They can be looking out for signs that go beyond people just separating because they've mutually decided to.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I mean, this lady, she runs a perpetrator program, and obviously her team need apparently constant review, reflection and oversight from the psychological element, and basically to manage any kind of potential manipulation. So it's quite interesting even to hear that's been constantly reviewed. And I think for anything, there's obviously, if you've got a personal interest, it's very different. I've recently just done an interview with Anushka Junik, and she's a detective constable, and she has a passion for what she does, and it clearly shows it in her environment, her work, and what she does in her department. Now, if there were more of her around the UK, that would benefit, many people. And I often think, we all can't specialize in a certain area, or we don't all have the same passions as well. But yeah, I definitely think it is an area of it's got maybe a personal passion towards this. So mediators having this passion to understand those types of behaviours, and even personality disorders or anything like that going into that
Absolutely.
kind of realm.
Yeah, and I think most mediators, when you go onto their profiles or their websites, what you will notice is that most mediators haven't just trained as a mediator, that they will have an interest in certain other areas. So for me, I trained as a mediator. Before that, I did a law degree. But I'm very, very interested in human psychology, in how relationships kind of develop and change over time, what makes that happen, people's thought processes. So I did a CBT course, cognitive behavioural therapy, not to become a counsellor, so I'm not an accredited counsellor or anything like that, but just to kind of understand the brain a little bit more. And I'm now doing an NLP master practitioner course. Again, it's because when you're in a field where it's all about understanding human interaction and behaviour and communication, you kind of get a thirst for knowing more. So for most mediators, you'll probably notice that they will have done extra study into other things. And so that can be quite a good way to decide, if you're able to decide which mediator to go for. There may be some who have, before becoming a mediator, been a psychologist or a relationship counsellor or something like that. So if there is a specialism in that area, they're more likely to pick up on those subtle human behaviours.
I was just going to say, do we have a choice, really?
Yeah,
In who
I
we have?
don't
I
know.
suppose in work, obviously, you probably do. So people, I'm assuming, will commission you to help their
Yeah,
workplace.
I
Whereas,
assume so. I would just, unless there was unless you had to go through a court-appointed mediator.
I think it might be that the solicitor, if you go to a solicitor's, they might have a link to a mediator maybe, but again, this is
That
just
would
off
sound logical.
memory.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe you can choose if you're the person going for mediation. I'm not sure, but if anybody does know, feel free to let us know,
Yeah, do. I'd
because
be interested anyway, just to know whether you can, because that's one of the things I was looking at before we had our conversation. I was trying to look through what the differences were between workplace mediation and family mediation, because I'm always interested to kind of see how it could be different in that way.
I
It'd be
mean,
good if there was choice.
yeah, it definitely would, because I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a time where you don't necessarily get on or have that feeling with the mediator, and I guess I'm trying to relate to it in terms of perhaps counselling. Sometimes you're just not going to get on with that particular counsellor, or or even in work when you're doing interviews with a potential employee, you just know if you're going to get on, and if it's not going to work. So I guess it's not just about and I know they're meant to, not be biased or anything like that.
No.
But at the same time, you still have, like emotional feelings towards people, don't you? So it might, just not work out with that mediator.
Yeah.
Anyway, the theme that I see between what you do in work and obviously the family mediation is clearly to do with relationships. And that's what you really work on, isn't it? And you have something called the DISC analysis that you've spoken about, and you can help people with themselves in relationships. So can you tell us a bit more about that kind of work? So, because it might just help some of us here.
So a lot of people, especially if you've worked in a commercial background in any way, it's possible that you will have come across personality analysis and different measures that you can have to kind of figure out your personality type or preference or all of that kind of thing. And one of the things that I noticed the most in mediation is that there is, especially in workplace mediation, there is a greater level that comes, a greater level of self-awareness that comes through the mediation process. And it is that level of self-awareness, that ability to kind of reflect on, oh, maybe it was because I said it like this, not because they were angry at me or anything like that. It's that self-reflective ability that enables you to move forward in a conflict situation. So I got interested in the different personality profiling tools you can use, and I came across this one called DISC. Some people may know it as a slightly different version, which is Insights, which is where you would look at the different colours, red, blue, yellow and green. So DISC it's literally is DISC, and what I love about DISC is that it helps you to understand possibly why the way you are communicating, what you motivates you, may be different to someone else, and that might be where friction is happening, but also that the way you are portraying yourself privately and then in publicly may be different. And if there is a difference, then it helps you kind of reflect on why is that different, what's happening there. And it also helps you understand how you're likely to behave and communicate in times of stress and change, which we've just gone through a lot of that right now. And I found it quite interesting for me. So I've done my own profile when I was training to deliver DISC profiles to other people. And I thought I was one of those people who in stress and change would just kind of like, all right, just grab this stress and change and run with a new idea and just like tackle it. And then when everything happened with the lockdown, what I noticed about myself was that actually all I wanted was to just be with my family. I was messaging my friends, checking on them, are you okay? And then I got my profile back, and it makes a lot of sense, because my profile said you are likely to want to just make sure your relationships feel secure and safe during stress and change. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. And so rather than being frustrated with myself, having these unrealistic expectations of how I should behave according to my own warped idea of what should look like, I was able to just go, okay, clearly what I need right now is what I'm doing. So I'm going to relax about it and just make sure I don't sit in my feelings for a very long time, and then I can get moving again. But these DISC personality profiles, what they do is they show you your preferences, so what you are likely to do, rather than saying you are this type of person, you will always be this type of person forever. It says, at the current time that you've taken this profile, this is likely to be how you communicate, it's likely to be what motivates you, and it's likely to be what you kind of run away from. So, for example, if and with the profiles as well, it shows you where you are with the D, I, S and C elements. So D is normally dominant, I influential, S steadiness, and C competence. And there are, people use different kind of words to explain the DISC, but those are generally what people will talk about. So it will show you where you are kind of with D, generally, you know, how much D you tend to have in your personality and your behaviours, how much I, how much S, how much C. And it talks about that current time. So it takes into consideration the fact that life comes and you will probably behave differently after, you know, people becoming a parent for the first time. It's likely that your profile will be slightly different. It's likely that in one type of role where you need to do a lot of admin, where you need to really like make sure that you're being clear on the detail being correct, that the C level in your personality will be slightly higher than, say, if you were in a role where you were very, very people facing. And so it was mainly about like building those and nurturing those relationships. You probably have more I or S in your profile at that point. So, but knowing this means that you're much more likely to be able to understand that A, no one's going to be like you, which is very helpful to know, because we all say everybody is different. And it kind of feels like a bit of a throwaway comment. But when it comes to conflict, when it comes to interactions with people, we unfortunately, naturally forget that and get frustrated or hurt or sad or cross if someone doesn't respond the way we expected them to respond. But understanding that naturally, so for some people, they will naturally just want to get to the end of a storyline. They don't need to hear the backstory. They want to hear the, they just want to get to the end. They want to hear the focal point and then move on. If that person is interacting with someone who loves to share about why I'm talking about this, is really important. You can hear my voice softening when I'm talking like this person, and the other person will want it quick. You can see where those interactions may go wrong if they're not aware of how the other person is likely to communicate. Because then you can go, it's not about me. And I think that's probably the key to DISC, is you can kind of take yourself out of the high emotions of being like, why are they trying to hurry me up? I don't know, is my story boring? Yeah. And actually it's not about that, it's just that they want to hear the end bit.
Yeah, and I suppose, I think, you know, it can all be a bit like that though, can't we? We sort of put our own perception onto things without meaning to, and some people might say we're being judgmental, but actually it's just that we want a different outcome, or we want that outcome faster than others, or for whatever reason. But it is interesting, and it's interesting obviously what you were saying about lockdown. And I don't know about you, but you know, we've sort of spoken about this on the podcast a few times, but for me it has been I don't know, a really, really weird experience. And
Yeah.
I did behave in the way that I thought I would behave, or react the way I thought I would react. But I didn't, and then I didn't. So things changed, and I thought I was just going to be in a rut for the whole thing. I wasn't. Obviously, you can tell that, and I've made so many different connections and built relationships that it's becoming more of a positive than originally feeling like it was going to be a complete negative. And I suppose it'd be interesting for me to find out what my profile would be, because it would be interesting to see. I think for me, mine has changed a lot. So if you met me coming out of that abusive relationship, I was a completely different person to who I am now. And I think perhaps, you know, that analysis and the things that you do to offer to help that sort of confidence and being who you are, kind of speaking up, as you mentioned, can help people with that, you know, taking those steps forward and having that acceptance over yourself as well. So for a lot of people that have been through abusive relationships, it's really hard to be happy with ourselves. And so maybe understanding why we feel like that might actually help us, you know, take those steps forward as well.
And I'm making an assumption a little bit here, but would it be accurate to suggest that if someone that you know, like your parent or sibling or a friend, if they were to kind of say, no, you're not this, you're this, I'm sure that would be nice, but do you feel convinced by them saying that? My assumption would be
They're
not
just saying it, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas one of the good things about DISC is it's not me marking an assessment and saying this is your personality profile at this moment. It's an algorithm that kind of goes, this is technically what you're likely to be, and it's very, very accurate. So I think it can help people who will take anything anyone else says nice about them with a pinch of salt. It kind of helps, because you can say, this is objective. This is not someone else just trying to make me feel good but telling me lies just to make me feel good. This is a very clever technology built on decades of studies of the human brain, and it's very accurate, and it says that these are my strengths.
Well, how does it work? We haven't spoken about that. Is it a quiz? What is it? How does it work?
Well, it's multiple choice, and I think when I did it, it took me about 7 minutes to complete, and then you get your then you get this whole report back. It varies obviously depending on the different detail for people, but it tends to be around like 15 to 18 pages in the report. And then I either offer people to just get the DISC report, so they get it emailed directly to them and they can go through it in their own time. But I also do a combination of the DISC report and feedback with me, so that I can help them kind of go through it and really unpick the different elements that they may have spotted in it, particularly if they're having, if they've done it based on a specific experience or a specific relationship difficulty they're going through, then we can kind of help apply the report to what's going on there and how they can kind of use it to move forward in a positive way.
No, it sounds really interesting, and it's something like an 18-page report.
I know, this is it. It can seem a bit overwhelming at times. What it is it's just kind of, it shows you so much detail, but it's also very clear. So it's very clear on like these are probably what motivates you. This is likely to be the things that you're going to be trying to kind of run away from a little bit in life. So for someone who has a lot of D in their personality profile, it's likely that they'll be motivated by success. So they'll be wanting to win, and win in everything. So win in a conversation, win in work, win in a relationship, and which can sound a little bit negative, but actually those are often the people who will help drive others if they have other elements in their personality profile as well. So it doesn't, It doesn't have to be one of the, the stereotypical bossy people that
Yeah.
things to mind. It can be the really good drivers, and they can help you like reach for the stars. But also they will be motivated by not failing. So in lots of different areas in their life, they will be motivated by not wanting to fail. By, say for example, they got in a car accident, it's likely they'll be defensive about what they did, because if it seemed that they messed up, then that's a failure.
Right, I see.
So it's likely that they're going to get more defensive than someone who maybe has a lot of S in their profile and will probably end up apologizing for whatever happened, because they want to make sure that the relationship they're having with this other person who they had a car accident with is okay.
Yeah, no, I kind of I see where you're going there. I apologise a lot, even if I don't have anything to apologise for.
Yeah.
So it'd be quite interesting. Well, how do people, get in touch with you? How do they find out more about you then, Emma?
Okay, so I'm on LinkedIn. Mosaic Mediation has a page on LinkedIn. I also have a Facebook page, Mosaic Mediation. I think it's Mosaic Mediation and Training. I think it's under on Facebook, and Instagram, and all of those lovely social media networks, and Twitter now, which I'm learning. I'm learning about Twitter more and more. I need to use it more, I think. But the main kind of way to get information really is on my website. So that's www.mosaicmediation.co.uk, and on there you can find about mediation and workplace mediation, but you can also find out about the conflict resolution coaching that I offer to people. I do specific training to workplaces on lots of different areas of communication and assertiveness. I've got an online course called the Kindly Speak Up course, which helps people who want to be kind in life, but also want people to listen to them and to be able to speak up for themselves. So this course is totally devoted to people who want to speak up, but also want to be kind at the same time. So all the details for that are on the website, and the details for one of my ebooks that I've got out, the 4 Pillars of Conflict Prevention as well. And I've got lots of different things, different resources as well that I share on my Facebook group, the Kindly Speak Up community. So people are very, very welcome to join that. And I think for me, the key with doing mediation is that I love being able to take people out of a situation where they feel completely stuck and they don't see a way out of this conflict. And then with the other side of the business, with like the coaching and this online course and the books, it's more about, and the Facebook group, it's because I came into mediation because I saw the impact of conflict on people's mental well-being and their sleep, but doing mediation, doing things which help people communicate more effectively, I think it just strengthens relationships. And having done workplace mediation where people will be having a conflict with their colleague, but it has spilled over to their to their home life. I'm really passionate about trying to find a way to help people not feel scared of having really essential conversations which feel difficult, and feeling kind of empowered and having the tools to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody should have a look. And I haven't, I didn't even know about your ebook. So that's something on my to-do list now. But, you can definitely see, your passion. And I've said this before in other interviews, that when there's somebody there with a passion, it just makes it completely different and easy to work with, and to sort of, it comes across naturally, do you know what I mean, and it's not forced. And for me, we need passionate people in work environments, in the sectors, to be able to communicate effectively and to be able to have these conversations. For me, obviously, this interview and doing this with you, I told you it is a link to domestic abuse, and even though you don't have that direct link, and we sort of covered a bit of family mediation, you weren't worried to have that conversation and to talk about it and to look at it. And I know personally that you'll have gone away and had a look and researched a bit, and just having that kind of side of it, and that just shows the sort of importance of having that passion to discover and learn more. So I want to say a huge thank you for agreeing to do this, because you didn't really know what you were running into, and and everybody that have asked questions have obviously coming from a real personal point of view, and having those legitimate questions as well. Sometimes people are going to have those bad experiences like you've said, and some people are going to have amazing experiences as well through it, and bringing closure and whatnot. So thank you so much, Emma, and for ease of everything, I will put all your details in the description, so you can just head over there and click through to Emma's website and her social media channels. So do check that out. And she's new to Twitter, so we will be heading over to Twitter now and having our weekly chat. So when this goes live on a Wednesday evening, you can head over now, and we'll be talking more about mediation over on our Twitter chat. So Emma, I might challenge you to join in.
Yes, I'll need to join in. I will challenge I'll take your challenge and I will do it. I will join in. I'm not scared of Twitter. I just don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm a bit of a Twitter fanatic, so
I'm going to follow your lead.
Well, thank you again, Emma. It's been lovely to speak to you and find out more about everything that you do.
Oh, you too. Thank you for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure.